7. Falling down. At Amori, life became immeasurably better. Humane, fair-minded Japanese took over. The Byrd's rules were abolished. In the Byrd's office, they found a pile of old letters sent to POWs by their families, but kept from the prisoners. The letters were distributed, and POWs were allowed to write home. Trust you're all in good health and in the highest of spirits, not the kind that comes in bottles, wrote in one letter. Tell Pete that when I'm 50, I'll have more hair on my head than he had at 20. 2 weeks into 1945, a group of battered men trudged into Omari. Louis knew their faces. These were Afuna men. Among them, Commander Fitzgerald. Louis spotted Bill Harris, and his heart fell. Harris was a wreck. When Louis greeted him, his old friend looked at him vaguely. After Louis had left Afuna, the quack had twice more clubbed Harris into unconsciousness, once for speaking aloud and once for stealing nails to repair his tattered shoes. Harris was hazy and distant, his mind struggling. One of the Amori POWs was a physician, and he examined Harris gravely. He told Louis he thought the Marine was dying. That day, the new commander had. Louis gave his box to Harris. It was, he said, the hardest and easiest thing he ever did. Harris rallied. The B-29s kept coming. Louis was worried. The guards were increasingly jumpy and angry. As the assaults on Japan intensified and the probability of invasion rose, viewed the POWs as threatening. Among American forces, horrifying news had just surfaced. On the Palawan Island in the Philippines, 150 American POWs had long been held as slaves by the Japanese. When an American convoy passed nearby, a Japanese commander was apparently sure the Americans would invade. The scenario for which the kill-all order had been written. He radioed to Palawan, annihilate the 150 prisoners. The next day, the Palawan guards suddenly began screaming that enemy planes were coming. The POWs crawled into air raid shelters and waited, hearing no planes. Then liquid rained onto them, gasoline. The guards tossed in torches, then hand grenades. The shelters and the men inside erupted in flames. As the guards cheered, the POWs fought to escape, some clawing their fingertips off. Those who broke out were bayoneted, machine-gunned, or beaten to death. Only 11 escaped, swimming across a bay and making it to safety. That night, the Japanese threw a party to celebrate the massacre. The anticipation of an American landing turned out to be mistaken. Sleet was falling over Amari as February 16th dawned. Louis had just finished breakfast when the sirens piped up and the room began shaking. He ran out into a crashing, tumbling world. The entire sky was swarming with hundreds of fighters, American and Japanese, streaming bullets at each other. Over Tokyo, dive bombers bellied down, slamming bombs into the aircraft factories and airports. As they rose, quills of fire came up under them. It was the largest air battle yet fought over Japan, and Louis was directly underneath it. The guards fixed bayonets and forced the POWs inside. Louis and the others waited for the guards to leave, then stole out. They ran behind a building and climbed up the camp fence. The view was electrifying. Planes were sweeping over every part of the sky, and all around, fighters were plunging into the water. One dogfight riveted Louis' attention. An American Hellcat fighter hooked up with a Japanese fighter and began chasing it. The Japanese fighter turned toward the city and dove lower over the bay. The Hellcat right behind it. The two planes streaked past the camp. The Japanese fighter flat out, the Hellcat's guns firing. Several hundred POWs watched from the camp fence, their faces pressed to knotholes or their heads poking over the top, hearts leaping, ears roaring. The fighters were so close that Louis could see both pilots' faces. The Japanese fighter crossed over the coast and the Hellcat broke away. All told, 1,500 American planes and several hundred Japanese planes flew over the POWs that day. That night, Tokyo was bathed in fire. The following day, back the planes came. By the end of February 17th, more than 500 Japanese planes on the ground and in the air had been lost, and Japan's aircraft works were badly hit. The Americans lost 80 planes. 7 days later, the hammer fell. At 7 a.m., during a heavy snowstorm, 1,600 carrier-based planes screamed past Omori and bombed Tokyo. Then came B-29s, 229 of them, carrying firebombs. Encountering almost no resistance, they sped for the industrial district and let their bombs fall. The POWs saw fire dancing over the skyline. 26 million square feet of the city was burning. On the last day of February, 15 POW officers were called out, among them Zamperini, Wade, Tinker, and Fitzgerald. They were told they were being transferred to a camp called Natsu. Perhaps this was the promised punishment camp, but Louis greeted the news with bright spirits. Whatever Natsu was, he'd be with almost all of his friends. The following evening, the chosen men gathered their belongings. Louis said goodbye to Harris, then climbed aboard a truck with the other men and rode into Tokyo. They were shocked at the sight. Whole neighborhoods had been reduced to charred ruins. Row after row of homes, now nothing but black bones. Transferred to a train, the POWs rode all night, moving west into a snowy landscape. In the early morning, the train drew up to Natsu, a seaside village in western Japan. The POWs stared in amazement. The snow rose some 14 feet around the station. Climbing a stairway cut in the drifts, they found themselves in a blinding white world, standing atop a snow mountain that buried the entire village. It was so deep that residents had dug vertical tunnels to get out of their homes. Pulling their baggage on sleighs, the POWs began the long walk to camp. It was windy and bitterly cold. It was windy and bitterly cold. It was so his crutches poked deep in the snow and wouldn't hold his weight. The prisoners crossed a bridge and saw the Sea of Japan. Just short of it, cornered against two rivers, was Natsu POW camp, almost entirely obscured by snow. Louis and the others trudged in and stopped before a shack, where they were told to stand at attention. They waited, the wind frisking their clothes. A door thumped open. A man rushed out and snapped to a halt, screaming, "Carrie!" It was the bird. Louis's legs folded, the snow reared up at him, and down he went. That's the end of chapter 27.